Hey Stacey, it's so great to be back today. I'm excited about today for sure.
Hello. Yes, me too. It's we just have so much fun when we're together and the conversations we're having are just expansive and literally mind-blowing even for me still. It's just a really fun experience.
Definitely wanted to pick up where we left off last week. I kind of dropped that bomb and said, this gets a lot more complicated when we start talking about past lives and what we bring in uh, from a past life into this life and how that just complicates everything, right? And, I've got so many people that I've worked with that, because I do past life regression, I will do acoustic record readings. But really, even when I'm just doing a regular reading, sometimes those things, and I talked about one of those things in a past episode that was just a regular reading, and that past life uh, situation came into that reading. But there are so many examples that I could give, but I would say one of my favorite experiences when it comes to something that somebody had brought in from a past life that was really impacting their life, their present life. I was working with somebody specifically on past life regression, which anyone who hasn't done a past life regression, let me take a pause and kind of explain. It really is when I work with somebody with a past life regression, it's kind of like a deep meditative state, is where we go to. And I'm kind of walking you through asking questions, and you're answering, but you are literally viewing that life. And we kind of start at the beginning of that life. I ask questions, and it's like a movie reel and you watch it. And I'm constantly reminding you as you are watching these scenes that you are safe. You're not in that life, you're watching that life. And when I do a past life regression, we go all the way through the life to the end of the life and then through the ascension and what the spirit guides want you to know about that life and the lessons in that life and how they've been brought into this life if you didn't get what you needed. So, in this particular session that I was working with someone and did a couple of sessions about this particular thing, they really brought in with them the fact that this relationship with money, they were having this huge problem relationship with money. They just couldn't ever have enough. And I don't mean um, like what they wanted. I mean enough to like survive. It was this constant battle of chasing enough just to survive. And they were a successful person. So it was like just when they thought they were getting ahead, some big thing would hit and it would take them out from underneath their feet. And, we went through some past life regressions and they actually hit on three different lives that they had carried the same thing, and we really came to the core of the issue and what it was that they brought in and why they brought it in, and this root of what they actually were creating for themselves. They really had a fear. They had a fear of being connected to money, and uh, it was really this peace that they needed in order to heal that connection, to be able to move past it and create a life in this lifetime that they could have a healthy relationship with money to where they weren't constantly in need. And it worked, and they healed that relationship with money, and now there isn't a money worry. So those are the kind of things, like if when we're bringing things in from a past life and we're not getting to, like I talked about with the other client, we're not getting to that root of the issue because traditional therapy isn't going to get us to the root of an issue if it came out of a past life.
Mhm.
And so that's why we're talking about the bridge of traditional mental health and some of these other practices,
Mhm.
because there are some things that traditional mental health therapy cannot do and cannot get to the root of.
Mhm.
And so we get really messy when we start talking about the basis of some of this anxiety, or the basis of having a bad relationship with money, or the basis of having these feelings of being abandoned that we don't know where it came from, because we weren't abandoned by our parents, or we weren't abandoned in relationships. Why am I so fearful of being abandoned? If those are the things that someone is experiencing and there's no root in this lifetime for those feelings to be overwhelming as they are, that's the time when we step out of the traditional realm and we need to have some of these other practices. And I'm going to volley back to you and go from there.
Yes, all that you were sharing about past lives, how it's kind of like the key that unlocks the piece that I would say at ideal, divine, whatever aligned timing. And I have, sought out and got to do some of that type of work, some one-on-one and some through like guided practices. And it's so, I find it fun. And because you're, like you said, it's not designed to relive it. You don't re-become that so-called like person or experience. And it is extremely enlightening. Whatever it is that comes through that we see is of course it's for us, and it often will have like these ahas. And I just love that there are these options for people, because when we've done what we know, drawing from this physical lifetime, like in a, with a therapist or even other types, is that when we've realized there's so much more that is impacting us, that has impacted us, and it brings people so much peace and relief.
Yeah.
And when I think about, and we were talking about this before we started recording, that it's the difference between like, or looking at life like it is a journey. So you talk about a journey of like, because I don't know how many past lifetimes I've had, but learning about that's even possible, let alone now I just have a knowing that that's real, at least for me. It's just like, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, it's not that there's something like wrong with me to be fixed, and everything we've been, that's a little bit of a thread we hold in all of our conversations, that while we're not, we can feel like we're broken and something's wrong because we're in distress, we are struggling. And with regard to journey, I like to look at it now as the struggle has meaning. And then you talk about like finding meaning in past lives, and like what was the learning that you said brought into this life. And if that comes in, like anyone who's hearing about this for the first time, or people that already have delved or explored or experienced, it's just it's just so beautiful and expansive and exciting, all the things, to know there's just so many possibilities. And the other piece too is like, and there's many ways to do that. So like past life regressions and that full process that like that you do and whatnot. And then I have learned I guess I'll call it a technique, but it is a process that also can land people back there. It's called matrix reimprinting.
Mhm.
And it's just so cool, like, because we're accessing beyond this. And so it's the same basic premises. And what needs to come in for that person will, through like imagery or sensation or hearing, right? It's different for everybody, that we would not access otherwise. and going, getting outside the box of just this, whether we know what has happened to us or not in this life or past lives, like what we need to know can come in.
Mhm.
And it's so beautiful when synchronicities, I believe in synchronicities, and we get what we need when we need it. And so
Absolutely.
I love that we're bringing in these conversations for people, because what if this is the thing at that moment in time, no matter when someone's listening? It's so beautiful.
Absolutely. I think one of my and I didn't hit on, I mean, I talked about the process, right? But I have not in any of our sessions that we've had hit on this piece that I feel really like I really need to hit on it. One of my favorite things about past life regression is, and in the way that I do it, and other people do it this way too. So I don't, I'm not saying it's a special way that I do it, but I do know that some people do it a little differently, right?
Mhm.
But taking someone through the whole journey
Mhm.
and through the ascension process to meet
Mhm.
with their spirit team,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
it is that piece of the journey, that ascension process, um, allows for people who have such questions about what happens to us when we pass.
Mhm.
Um, I can't even begin to explain how much that answers and
Mhm.
how much comfort that brings,
Mhm.
for someone to experience that part, not just the healing part of knowing something that has a root cause,
Mhm.
but that piece of knowing that this life, even when a life ended poorly, like it could have, I've worked with people who were murdered. My own husband, who I've done past life regressions with, was murdered in one of his past lives in a taxi cab in New York City. Like, I mean, he was murdered, shot and murdered,
Mhm.
and he literally could move right past that part of the real as he ascended, because
Mhm.
when we ascend, we all ascend. Let me be
Mhm.
clear. When we
Mhm.
ascend, we are filled with so much love and so much wisdom and so much light. I
Mhm.
can't even begin to
Mhm.
explain the feeling of that. It
Mhm.
is unlike anything that we have ever felt in this physical realm.
Mhm.
One of the pure gifts of meeting with spirit teams, with spiritual healing teams, because, we've talked about, I do that too. Doing readings, being in my circle, doing past life regression, all of these things that I do. One of the reasons I love so much doing it is because I get a little piece of that every single time.
Mhm.
And I've been asked so many times, how do you come back from that? How do you want to come back from that? Right? Like, it's because I know that I have purpose in this life, right? Like, but I'm telling you, like, to feel even like a quarter of what it must feel like when
Mhm.
we ascend, because I'm sure I'm not feeling all of it. And I'm sure even in a past life regression, we don't feel all of it like we feel it when we ascend. To feel even a quarter of it
Mhm.
is the most beautiful feeling that I have ever experienced. And clients say this too, that they've ever felt the most love they have ever felt, even
Mhm.
more love than you feel for your own child. Like I can't, it is so enveloping. It is so beautiful. It is so comforting. It is so peaceful. It is unlike anything we experience in this physical realm. And to know that is what is awaiting us
Mhm. Mhm.
provides such a peace in this
Mhm.
journey
Mhm.
that it's like, okay,
Mhm.
yeah, I can. I can trudge on through and
Yeah.
complete what I need to, learn what I need to in this journey, pay
Yes.
attention in this journey.
Yes.
Um, because I have no reason to worry because
Mhm.
that moment,
Mhm.
it, it's just so beautiful. And so, that's another reason why I just feel like if you're there, if this resonates with you, if it's something that you feel like, man, I really want to do that, get at the root of something I may have brought in, I
Mhm.
just, it's the
Mhm.
whole process that
Mhm.
means so much,
Mhm.
really.
Yes.
And I'll
Yeah.
pass back to you.
Yes. So, I mean, when we take that step back and going from this struggling, pain, maybe even suffering experience as a human, and a lot of people use the word awaken, awakening, opening up to this isn't it. Like this is an experience that we're each meant to have. And then when we do, you know, ascend, and then that's funny when you said, when people ask you, like, is it hard to come back? And is it, and I'd love to listen to people's experiences that they share about this. And for some, it is very difficult. Like often, like people use like Kundalini awakenings or just wake awakenings, and I'm not an expert on all of that, and I'm just making reference here, but that I do believe there's so much more for our own experience in this body as we awaken. And so some people can really, it could become something where people are like, well, I want to have that experience. I got to have it. I'm suffering now. I want to ease this pain. Going from where we are to that's like 0 to 100 million, that sometimes, and you could maybe speak better to this, that we're not ready for that. But and I know in my experience, and then in working with clients on their mental health struggles, to begin to talk about who am I, why am I here, what's really going on, and then to open up to the unconscious in the now or in past and past lives brings in so much more of the awareness of all that we are. And we often get whatever we can handle. And we'll have a part of us, again, that struggling part that's like, no, 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 I want it fixed now. Yep, that's real. And we want that. But if we experienced it, we may not even be able to maintain it at the level we think we want. So it's like trying to open up to, oh, there's so much more here for us, and that we are, and to also be aware what we think we know we want. Kind of, there's expressions, sometimes people say, we don't get what we want, we get what we need, which when we look at the journey, it's the struggle is us in respect getting what we need. And we're like, I don't want that. I want it, whatever. But it's interesting what happens when we opened up into acceptance, not acceptance of our situation, but an acceptance of this is what I'm feeling right now. And when we go, oh, what if there is a purpose to this? What if
Mhm.
there is so much more?
Yep.
And then you and I in different ways, but we are guiding people to access beyond this, so much beyond this. And when we start feeling that, we will start to feel more love at whatever level, at whatever way people do experience that, which is beyond description. I'm not even going to try to experience that or describe that, but it's that openness.
Mhm.
Because then that the higher self, soul connected to divine and all that is, including our guides and everything, we're going to feel that.
Mhm.
And it is so beautiful and amazing. And so nowadays, like even when I struggle, or if I'm meeting the client and they're struggling, it's like, and we don't just jump to, oh, sorry, you're struggling. Let's remember all that you are. No, because it's not, let's skip over the pain.
Mhm.
That's what the human wants,
Mhm.
but it has a purpose.
Yep.
And us, and you've definitely mentioned this before, and this is another thread. We are here to learn to love ourselves
Yep.
for all that we are, bring that into the world because the world's ascending. I mean, we are all awakening, however, in whatever way. And it comes through often crisis and struggle. And now I'll pass it off, to you. What a beautiful conversation.
I really want to piggyback on what you said because, if there is someone who is struggling and thinks, oh, well, that sounds beautiful. I'd rather do that. I
Yeah.
want to remind people, if you're gonna, I don't mean buy into the past life thing, that because I very much, I mean, for, I'm not trying to make somebody believe something they don't, but here's the thing. Um, if we leave this journey before we complete this journey, we have to come back and do it again. Like, so when I say to somebody, I have to, that's not an option, right? I have to come back and finish my journey. It's because, gosh darn it, I want to complete this journey so I don't have to have all these lessons again, right? Like, uh, and I'll say it in that way this time, right? Because yes, it is a beautiful experience to feel that. But Stacy is also right. When you are connected, when you are open, when you are balancing your chakras, which we've talked about a lot, when you are connected to the universe, you are feeling that love at a higher level. We could, there's so many places I could take this conversation. And, I definitely think I've talked a lot about my childhood, the trauma that I've had. You know, I didn't mention a whole lot about how angry I was, kind of skipped over, when Esmeralda was trying to teach me at 12 about, these soul contracts. I didn't really talk about how angry I was, other than being angry at Esmeralda. But I was very angry. I was very angry about what I went through, what happened to me. I was angry at everyone around me. I was angry at myself. Um, and I had no reason to be angry at myself. Let me be clear, for anyone who has experienced that or any type of abuse, there is no reason to be angry at yourself. But I was. And to name that, to face that was very, very important. It was not my fault, but for a long time I blamed myself, right? Like, did I, and again, I want to be clear, I was ages 4 to 9, 10 years old, right? Like, I want to be clear, there was nothing that I could have done that would have done that to me, right? But you go through that process, right? As you're processing that trauma. Oh, was there something I could have done differently? Was there something, you know, I was very angry. I was, both as a teenager and as a young adult, I was very, very angry. I did not feel a lot of love. I did not feel like, from anywhere around me, in me, anything. Now, and remember, like, I want to be clear, I was connected even then. Remember, I started this spiritual journey being connected at 4 years old, right? And even being connected, I was still so angry. I didn't feel the amount of love that was there for me and for you. I didn't feel it because I was so angry and traumatized and unhappy and couldn't find joy, right? Because although I had the ability to see, hear, connect, I wasn't connecting the things that were imperative to be connected to and balanced with. I was getting the messages, but as far as like the energetic balancing, like, I wasn't there. And so when I did that own personal journey, and started working on that healing of self, that healing, both in traditional therapy and in spiritual ways,
Mhm.
that's when everything changed,
Mhm.
right? Like everything changed. And even on days like even in my current life, there are people that are not nice. There are
Mhm.
people that are not nice that I come across,
Mhm.
but it does not affect me in the same way because I
Mhm.
know how much I am loved and how much I am
Mhm.
surrounded and how much I love me.
Mhm.
Like, I know that. I know my worth. I
Mhm.
know how much I have to contribute to this world.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
maybe I'm not great at everything.
Mhm.
There's plenty of things that I fail at, but
Mhm.
I'm very solid in who
Mhm.
I am.
Mhm.
I'm very connected. And
Mhm.
so even on days and I have some doozies of days, and Stacy can affirm that because Stacy and I talk about everything. We don't just talk about this podcast. She can affirm that I have some doozies of days, and I can affirm Stacy does too. But even on those days that are
Mhm.
super bad and my energy feels super low, I still choose to reconnect and rebalance and be filled with that love.
Mhm.
So I wanted to clarify all of those things because I don't want somebody to hear how beautiful that process is, and think, oh, I want to jump to that.
Mhm.
Because honey, you're just going to have to come back and do it again, and the same lessons, and that's no good. That's no good. You know and you do the work, right? Like whatever that looks like for you at this point, traditional therapy, spiritual work, a combination, whatever that looks like,
Mhm.
because uh, the sun can shine on your face again. Like you can reach the top of that mountain. And for all of us, it looks different, right? It doesn't have to look like you're the person next to you or your best friend. It can look very different for each one of us. And
Mhm.
that's okay. We don't need to look, our journey doesn't need to look like somebody else's. We're here for our own personal journey, not
Mhm.
to live up to somebody else's.
Yes.
And I'll volley back to you for sure.
Oh, yes. Oh, such lovely, important aspects that you're sharing there. Because when we are struggling and hurting so much and just wanting relief, we do look at the outside world. There's that comparison and shoulds and why can't I be that way or that we should be that way. We're all raised in the families we're raised in and the cultures we're raised in, and it gets the messaging that comes through all of that about who we are, and then we perceive what we perceive. And I want to link in, at least in general, right, to when you're talking about soul contracts. This all has a purpose. It's all part of the journey. And it's this like dance of I'm having this very human painful experience, but there is a bigger picture, and we don't want to avoid going in. And you and I have our unique processes for how we, invite in and welcome clients into getting connected with all that you are, connecting to the truth of your pure love. You have a beautiful, loving essence that if you're not feeling it and resonating it, and yep, you want it and you want to like dive in, it needs to be cultivated. And we go inward to recognize you have a higher self presence. That's however all this works. It's in whatever people believe. I'm not trying to tell you this is how it is. It's like you are not what you think you are, because thought cannot begin to articulate, explain, describe. It is beyond words. And what we invite in just talking about in this conversation and in our process with clients is to guide you within and beyond. And it is beautiful, but while also honoring the journey of wherever you are. You are not getting it wrong. There's nowhere else that you should be right now than right where you are. But you don't have to suffer. We can learn through tools, direct guidance in sessions or whatever, whatever practices that are appealing to people, that there's so much more. So anyone who's like really struggling right now. And I love that we're bringing in how that all sounds great. Sign me up to the ascension experience, right? And the love. But you can have more of it right now. You
Mhm.
literally can. If you're feeling like very, very little, you can 2% more, 3% more, and you will get there. It takes, like devotion and commitment, but you're right where you're meant to be. Right where you're meant to be. Yeah,
Absolutely.
love
I
it.
just want to remind people, if you're watching and you are really, really struggling, to please reach out to your mental health provider, or contact a crisis line. 988 is nationwide. So please do that,
Mm,
if you need to, because I'm not minimizing those experiences.
mm,
And, we all have moments where we feel like this is just too much.
yes.
Um, and, that is part of the human experience, I think. And it's important to have support.
Mhm,
And please reach out, because you are so loved beyond anything you could ever imagine, beyond,
mhm,
beyond anything you could ever imagine. And you are so supported and you
mhm,
are so guided.
mhm,
And I just really want you to know that. But here in this human physical experience, there are a lot of people that can support you too.
mhm.
So I just wanted to put that out there. And I
Lovely.
just want to thank everybody for joining us today. This has been a really in-depth conversation, important information, emotional, for sure, touching on a lot of things that are really deep,
Mhm,
um, and but important.
mhm. Lovely. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Until next time, thanks so much, guys.
Bye for now.